let me assure you that our priority will remain to ensure stability and security.
In order to ensure the security and continuing
Stability, security for Canadians.
Galactic Empire!
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
You are listening to The Election Fallout on OppositionRadio.com.
We're in a funny place in this election campaign right now. We've got a Prime Minister shut down Parliament twice, and Canadians kind of shrug. We got a Prime Minister who's found in contempt of Parliament. It's never happened before in the history of our country, and people say, kind of, so what? We got a Prime Minister who tried to shut down the long-form census, and people thought, that's crazy, but kind of, so what? And then we had a Prime Minister who just went out and smeared a member of his own caucus, tried to destroy her public reputation, and people say, kind of, so what? And then we've got a Prime Minister who's got a convicted criminal who was his chief of staff, convicted 5 times of fraud, and people say, kind of, so what? And then we've got a Prime Minister who's got right now in his election campaign 4 people accused of election fraud running his current campaign. And people say, kind of, so what? And then you start to, that's when I keep hearing that. And then we've got a Prime Minister who allows only 5 questions to the press. The press are following around. They only get 5 questions. And if they ask 6, he walks away. And people say, kind of, so what? And then we've got a situation where at Guelph University the other day, students lined up for 2 hours, some of them voting for the first time in their lives, to vote. And a conservative operative tried to shut it down and stop it, and some smart conservative lawyer downtown tried to write a letter to get 700 votes by Canadian students disallowed in a federal election in Canada. And people say, kind of, so what? Just all political games, who cares? And I kept hearing that refrain from Bruce Springsteen, rise up. Rise up. Rise up, Canada. Rise up. Rise up. Why do we have to put up with this? Rise up. Rise up. Rise up. This goes beyond partisan politics. This goes beyond the Liberal Party. This is about our country. This is about our democracy. Rise up. Rise up. We have got to fight here. We have got to stand and fight. This is not about me. This is not about the Liberal Party. This is about the kind of democracy we hand to this child and this child and this child. We got to rise up. We got to stand. We got to fight, and we got to win. This is not about the Liberal Party of Canada. This is about the country you love. So rise up, Canada.
And welcome to episode 28 of Election Fallout on OppositionRadio.com, where we have been doing craptastic analysis since May 3rd, 2011. My name is Tony Lofen, and I am joined as always by Mike Cook, the storm watcher of Orillia, Ontario. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Not too bad. Storm seems to have blown away, so I think we're good.
Oh yeah? No danger of power outages there in the Orillia town?
No, we had some good lightning flashes there maybe 15 minutes ago, but the wind tends to blow things around the 2 lakes here, so we're good.
Well, thanks for the update on the status of storms in Orillia.
Yeah, a little bit of weather. Sorry for everyone.
I just like to point out that we just started the show with the prophetic Rise Up speech by Michael Ignatieff.
Yeah, hearing that today, unfortunately, it has for me, anyways, it has a much more effective message today. I mean, a lot of people failed to hear Michael Ignatieff and what he was saying. And I'm not a huge Michael Ignatieff fan, but when you listen to everything he said in that speech, everything that he said has essentially been the foundation of what Stephen Harper has built on, and all the scandals and abuses of power have just gotten larger.
Absolutely. I mean, I pulled that up last night and give it a listen to for the first time since it came out, And it's because me and you were talking about the hatchet job that Ignatieff did on him, or Mansbridge did on him about 4 days after he gave that Rise Up speech. That Rise Up speech was in the process of becoming a rallying cry for every progressive in this country until Mansbridge stepped in and did something about Michael Ignatieff.
13 days before the election, I believe.
Yeah. And we're going to, I think that's going to be one of the main things that we're going to get into tonight is taking a look back. Sometimes if to know where you are and know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. How do we get into this position with essentially a dictator wielding majority power in this country, running roughshod over the institutions of democracy that we took for granted for a long time. And that what we just heard Michael Ignatieff, telling people to wake up, rise up, and make sure that we don't go and hand this dictatorial power to Stephen Harper, because he can't be trusted to use it properly. I mean, our system is not perfect. One of the problems is a majority, a prime minister with a majority in parliament can be a dictator and can run over everything. And we're seeing that with the Bill C-38. There was a huge uprising in Canada about that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, there's literally nothing we can do. They're going to do what they want, and we can't stop them until next chance we get. Yeah,
the majority situation, it's interesting because it's come up for me a couple of times in just a couple of different internet forums and things. And whenever some people don't like that you say the word dictator, and they throw it back at you and they say, Stephen Harper isn't a dictator, and that you're going too far, and that you need to say this to frame your subject. But I mean, even if you remove calling him a dictator, everything that he's done with this majority parliament has time and time again shown that a disrespect for the parliamentary process, a disrespect for any sort of questioning of authority, any sort of questioning, not even just questioning authority. Any questioning is not acceptable to this government. And as much as any majority government could become a dictatorship, this majority government is proving the worst. I mean, there have been other majority governments that have done have had actions that you could say, okay, that probably wasn't the greatest thing to do, or but this one, it's just straight through and through.
Stephen Harper is redefining the concept of abuse of power right now. I mean, and you're right. You could point to certain things that other majority leaders have done in the past, but there is nothing to set a historical precedent for us to have.
It's never been this full of a spectrum where across the board, no matter what issue comes up or what process comes up, it's the same story time and time again. The wheat board, they could have had the plebiscite and listened to the farmers, but no, instead they literally just go in and turn around the whole process and dismantle the wheat board undemocratically, even though the farmers wanted to keep it.
And here's the thing, Mike, and it should not be forgotten that it was illegal for them to dismantle the wheat board without having a plebiscite. It was illegal. And
that's
then
just one example. I mean,
the farmers took them to court. The court found in the favor of the farmers, and the Conservatives says, we don't recognize the authority of this court. We're going to go ahead and dismantle it. Exactly. You know what I mean? So this is ongoing. But I mean, it's funny you bring up the wheat board, because this has always been an issue that's been very, very close to my heart. Because not that I'm a farmer, not that I, have any. I don't even know any farmers. But guess what? I mean, those people, we take our food supply for granted. That's another thing we take for granted. We took democracy for granted, and now we're taking our food supply for granted, and it itself is under siege.
It's an issue that we never really got to cover correctly, and I don't want to really get bogged down in it. I was just putting it out there as one example. But it just, time and time again, you can, the F-35s, the price tag, the fact that they hide the amount of the price tag. I mean, you go through the justice bill or the crime bill that they put through. The use of the omnibus budget, the repealing of essentially all of or not all, a large portion of our environmental regulations that Canada has worked. I mean, through and through.
But back to the abuse of power that Stephen Harper is perpetrating as majority leader, as our prime minister with a majority power, I should say. What people don't often think about is the fact that there are good people in politics and there are bad people in politics. When the Canadian people decide to trust one man with dictatorial power in our society, that trust has always been more or less repaid, you know. But Stephen Harper is not exactly doing that as well. No, and he would be an example of what I would call a bad person in politics. So
Exactly.
what I hear all too often from people is they say all politicians are worthless people. They all lie, or they all know they're, you know. And what a lazy person does is an excuse not to think, not to differentiate, not to take a stand.
It's a form of stereotyping. Yeah. It's an easy one to do because politicians are an easy target.
Yeah, and guess what? When people say things like that, it's significant in that those people are dropping out of the system. Those people no longer participate. They use that argument in order to justify not voting. And when good people don't vote, people like Stephen Harper win, because
Absolutely.
good people are not his natural constituents. Okay, his natural constituents are hyper-religious vampires and big oil. That's it. That is it. And if you're not big oil and you're not some sort of hyper-religious vampire, you have no reason to vote for this man. Okay, so it's in his interest to sully the reputation of all politicians so good people drop out. And that's all I got to say on that. You feel like going to a track before I get carried away?
Sure.
Let's do it.